Greetings. This is St. Mark's Episcopal Church, Richmond, Texas. This is Kids Kingdom, Christian formation intended for youth in grades 1 through 5. And I am Chris Abbott, the Christian formation teacher. Please excuse my t-shirt today. We're going to be using some ink and some dye in our activity today, and so that's why I put a t-shirt on today. And of course, it's a Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation shirt because each year at St. Mark's, I am the captain of the St. Mark's for a Cure walk team as we walk to provide funds for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. But anyway, that's why I'm in a t-shirt today, and so I'll be showing you soon why we're doing that. As you know, we always begin in prayer. Dear God, help us to recognize your work in our world. Remind us not to look for you wearing a flashy coat like Joseph's. Help us to remember that you are near to us, comforting us always. Amen. Another little reminder. This is I should have said this. This is the lesson for Sunday, October the 10th. And in your bag, you did have one of these song coloring sheets if you want to work on that also. We are continuing our unit of study on Joseph. This is the 5th week of that unit. I hope you enjoyed your dirt pudding last week with the Oreo and the worms inside the dirt pudding. I hope you enjoyed that. And I think you will enjoy the activity also today with the Technicolor pillowcases that we're going to be making. All right, just to review just a little bit before we start our reading for today, we have Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery into Egypt by his brothers, who were jealous of him and envious of him because he was the father's favorite. And the father had made this beautiful coat of all these different colors for him, and the brothers were jealous. So they sold him into slavery. When he gets to Egypt, he ends up in jail for a while, but he proves to the Pharaoh that he can figure out what the Pharaoh's dreams mean. And he has now been raised to the position of the second most powerful person in Egypt. And the crops are growing real well and everything's going fine. But he's warned the Pharaoh that they're going to have all these years of everything going well, and then will come the famine. And so they're saving some of their crops and they're preparing for the bad times ahead. And of course, we need to remember that Joseph isn't able to do all this by himself. This is God working in our world to help Joseph, to help the Pharaoh, to help the people plan for what's ahead. And it's God giving him the guidance and the direction and showing him what he should be doing. Okay, so if you open the Bible to page 62 and 63, first of all, you'll see up at the top of page 62, here's a statue of a starving man with a little bowl out, and he's begging for food. And this particular statue was found as part of an artifact, and it represents about 2,000 years BC, which would be like about 4,000 years ago when this famine took place. And the thought is that the famine was caused by the lack of water from the Nile River. And the Nile was used for watering the crops, so the crops would grow. But what happened is that for some reason there was a drop in the level of the water of the Nile, and so the water wasn't able to water the crops, and then the crops didn't grow, and then there wasn't food, and then the people were starving and they were begging and there wasn't anything to eat. So that's the point at which our part of this Joseph story begins today. And we're on page 62. The famine had spread to Cana. Joseph's father Jacob saw that his people were hungry. So he sent 10 of his sons to Egypt to buy wheat. He kept Benjamin, his beloved youngest son, at home with him. The brothers set off on their long journey from Cana to Egypt. They found their way to the governor, who was their brother Joseph. Once in his presence, they knelt humbly before him, their faces pressed to the ground. Joseph knew at once who they were, but they didn't recognize him in his fine clothes. He spoke accusingly. "You are spies coming here to spy on Egypt." "No," they protested. "We are from Cana, come here to buy grain. We were 12, but the youngest is at home with our father, and one of us is dead." "Why should I believe you?" Joseph demanded. "You must prove you are not spies. You shall return to Cana to fetch the youngest, and then I will know if you are telling the truth." But first, Joseph had the brothers thrown into prison for 3 days. On the 3rd day, they were brought back again before him. "Take this wheat back to your land," he said, "but bring your youngest brother here, or I shall have you all put to death. And to make sure you obey me, I shall keep one of you here as a hostage." The brothers trembled. They felt guilty, and they believed that this was a punishment for the way they had treated Joseph. As they whispered among themselves, Joseph listened silently, weeping at the sight of their frightened faces. He had spoken through an interpreter and knew they did not realize he could understand everything they said. Suddenly, he gave the order for one of the brothers, Simon, to be bound in front of them and put in jail. Then he had the sacks of the others filled with wheat, and the silver they had brought to pay for it secretly replaced. Lastly, he gave them food before sending them on their way. Overnight, on their journey home, one of the brothers opened his sack to get wheat for his donkey and saw the returned silver. "What does this mean?" they asked each other nervously. Once back in Cana, they told Jacob everything. "My children are being taken from me. First Joseph, then Simon," said Jacob. "And now they want to take Benjamin? But you shall not take my youngest child from me. If harm came to him, I would go to my grave in sorrow." All right. So, the brothers don't recognize Jacob. They thought they had sold him to be a slave. But in the meantime, of course, he has become the second most important and most powerful person in Egypt. And he's wearing these fancy clothes, and he's a very powerful person, and the brothers, they don't realize who he is. But Joseph recognizes them and says, "Aha, here are my brothers." All right. So, he sends them back, keeping Simon behind, with the bags all full of wheat, and he took the silver that they had paid for the wheat and stuffed it back in their bags. So when they're on their way home, they discovered the silver's there, and they're totally confused. They don't understand why the one brother was kept, why they have to bring Benjamin back to him, why there's the silver back in the bags. They're totally confused about the whole situation. So, now, the important thing to remember here is that because God gave Joseph the ability to understand the Pharaoh's dream, and they were able to take the crops and store them away and keep them, that the people are now able to eat during the famine. And that was all God's plan. And of course, we may not understand all of God's plans for what's going on for us all the time, but God does have a plan, and he's working for that, and he's working to be able to manage what's going to happen in our world, even though we might not understand it at the time. So, the thing to think about here is that we have to trust God, and that he loves us. He's on our side. He's trying to work for us. He loves us, and he's trying to help us do the things that are going to be best in our lives, even though we may not understand it at the time. The brothers certainly don't understand what's going on at the time. No, they don't. But God has a plan. So, what you need to think about is when you have a problem and a challenge and things aren't going right, what is it that God can help you do? Praying to him, talking to him, listening to him, whatever the plan might be, that God can help you during a challenging and difficult time. He has not abandoned you at all. He's there to help you and provide you with the guidance you need to help you through the tricky and the difficult times. All right, now for our activity today, in your bag you had a bottle of rubbing alcohol, medicine dropper, some brand new colorful Sharpies, cups with rubber bands inside the cups. You'll be needing to use the rubber bands also. And you also had a brand new white pillowcase. And what we're going to be doing with the pillowcase is making it into a Technicolor pillowcase to remind us of the Technicolor coat that Jacob had given to Joseph. So, now, I didn't want to use a brand new pillowcase just to show my sample for you. So, I used an old dish towel. But let me remind you that we're going to be using Sharpies and rubbing alcohol, and you need to maybe make sure that you're working in the kitchen, or maybe put down newspapers or an old towel or something so that you're not spilling the rubbing alcohol on a desk or a table or something important. So you need to keep that in mind. I'll show you these were my practice on the old dish towel, but you're going to be working on a nice, clean, new pillowcase. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to slip the cup inside the pillowcase, and then with a rubber band, take the rubber band and put it around the circumference of the cup so that it's holding the fabric on top of the cup. And the basic idea here is that you're going to use drops of, or make quick pointed marks on the fabric with the Sharpie, and then with the medicine dropper, drop rubbing alcohol on the drops of Sharpie, and that's what makes the color run in the Sharpie. So I learned a little bit by doing this ahead of time, and the sooner you put the rubbing alcohol on the drops of the Sharpie that you've put on the cloth, the faster the color will run. If you let the Sharpie dry on the fabric, then it just doesn't run as well. So you have to kind of work quickly and keep that in mind. Don't let the Sharpie dry. So just to show you what I mean here, I'm going to use my green Sharpie, and I'm going to put 3 quick little pointed marks on the fabric, and I have my rubbing alcohol that I'm going to drop quickly on top of the Sharpie, and it makes the color run. You probably can't see that very well, but it did. And the faster you get the rubbing alcohol on top of the Sharpie, the more the color is going to run, and it makes it more colorful. Then you can move the towel, I'm sorry, you're using a pillowcase. You can move it to another spot, put the rubber band back on it, use a different color Sharpie or whatever you want to do. This time I'm going to make this kind of a squiggly line, come back with my rubbing alcohol, dripping it on there, and it sends the ink. Anyway, so that's what you're going to be doing with your pillowcase. And of course, your pillowcase is this nice, clean, white pillowcase, not the dirty old towel that mine was. But all in all, it's going to help you remember that Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat that his father had given him started the whole story to begin with. After you finish with the Sharpie and the rubbing alcohol and the cups and whatever, you need to put the, in my case, my towel, in your case, the pillowcase, in a dryer at home for about 15 minutes to dry it and make it a permanent thing. And then you have your Technicolor Dreamcoat pillowcase. So, kind of interesting. So, anyway, I hope you will enjoy doing that at home and have some fun with it and help you remember Jacob. As you know, we always conclude our lesson with the Lord's Prayer. The Lord be with you. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. This concludes our lesson for Sunday, October the 10th. Goodbye from St. Mark's, Richmond. And I'd sure love to see your pillowcases. So please, please send me some pictures so I can see what your Technicolor pillowcases ended up looking like. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.